Class inheritance in C++ is simply a matter of creating a base class and then declaring the inheritance in your derived class definitions. Here's a simple example. Here I have a working copy of simpleinheritance.cpp from chapter 7 of the exercise files. Here the animal class is a base class, and the classes that inherit from it, down here, are the derived classes. Some people use the terms parent and child, but that's not as common. The animal class is simple. It has 3 private data members for the name, type, and sound of the animal. It has a public method called speak, right there, and a protected constructor. The protected access specifier means that members are only accessible through derived classes. Also notice that the default constructor is in the private access section. That's up here. The default constructor defaults to public, so overloading it and marking it as private prevents anyone from constructing an object of this class. If you want to use this as a base class but not directly for creating objects, this is a good way to ensure that the class is never used directly to create an object. Notice how the dog class inherits the animal class. The colon is followed by an access specifier and the name of the base class. The access specifier controls how base class members will be accessed by the code that uses your derived class. This will almost always be public. Now notice the constructor for the dog class. It has initializers that call a base class constructor and initialize a private member variable. Now you remember this base class constructor is in the protected section up here, so it can only be called from derived classes. The base class constructor is called because it initializes its members. If you want to initialize any base class members directly, they would have to be declared protected or public. This is not really recommended. It's much easier to maintain your code when you use the class interface. In this case, that means using the base class constructor. Notice that I've also included a private data member and a public accessor down here in the dog class. This is to show that a derived class is just like any other class, except that it inherits some properties from its base class. The private member is initialized just like any other class, and the accessor is used as you would expect. So down here in main, I construct 3 objects of dog, cat, and pig, and here's our dog, cat, and pig classes, and they all inherit animal. And I call the speak method on each of these. And you notice that the speak method is in the base class, and then I call these individual methods walk, pet, and feed for each of the derived classes. So there's walk, there's pet, and there's feed. And when I build and run this, you see that we get Rover, the dog says woof, and here we initialized the dog with the name Rover. And in the dog class, we called the constructor on animal with its sound of woof and its type of dog, and that's these private data members up here. And I call these walk, pet, and feed methods, and it says the dog has been walked, the dog has been petted, and the dog has been fed. And you notice that each of these increments its private data member. So this is actually very simple. It might look like a lot of stuff. And this is just a simple example just for the purpose of showing you how this works. Class inheritance in C++ is really very simple. It's also very powerful. We'll look at some more complex examples in the rest of this chapter.